Mike!
Austin, how you doing, man?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Oh my
morning.
gosh, we have a lot of ground to cover, my guy. We really do. This is
So much
this is
ground to cover.
dude. So much has happened in the last month. It's not even funny. And I made a couple of notes ahead of time. Where did I put those even? There we go. We got a lot to unpack. The jobs report dropped yesterday. Ukraine, what's been going on in the stock market, how to ask for a raise the right way, interest rates, which have just been kind of ping-ponging a little bit. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And I'm ready to start wherever it is that you want to start. You know, I love me some jobs reports, and it dropped yesterday, and I'm really happy with it. But that's just me.
Okay, here's what I'd like to talk about. Can
Yeah.
we tell a story? Can we create narrative around, or can we tell the story about what's happening to the average person's affordability with everything?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what this is actually about, right?
That is exactly what this is about. That is exactly what this is about. And that's what it's going to be about. That's going to be the narrative for the next probably 120 to 150 days until something happens to get a handle on this. And you're right. And at the end of the day, everything that's going on just makes things more difficult.
Yeah.
It
I
is.
think people are getting squeezed everywhere. Gas pump, grocery store, interest rates. I think affordability is getting attacked for sure. And I think all of these things play into it. Would you agree with that statement?
I agree. I 100% agree. Um, okay, and you know, I guess let's just start with the Ukraine. Let's just start there. Okay.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people are pretty up to snuff as to what's kind of been happening. So there's a Russian troop buildup. Russia did decide to cross the border and invade the Ukraine. There's been heavy fighting and the Russian president trying to hold out. Love his response, by the way. He is my new hero. Biden said, "Hey, why don't we go ahead and airlift you out?" And he said, "That's okay. I don't need a ride. I need troops and help." And he just stayed. He just stayed. Literally
Right.
one of my new heroes. Great guy.
Can you imagine making that decision? Like it feels like imminent death, right?
Yeah,
So can you
100%.
imagine making that decision, believing in your country so much? It's very interesting to me. And my guess is we have viewers on here in Metro Detroit, we have a big Russian population and a big Ukrainian population, right? So I imagine we have people on both sides of the opinion. But that's
Well, now, you know, we've also got a big Polish population, and that's being affected because,
great
like,
point.
those guys are at, you know, they're taking the bulk majority of the refugees. If I remember the stat from Thursday, roughly a million refugees have crossed the border so far, but that's
Yeah.
just so far. They're expecting that to balloon to 4 million, and that's hard for any country to absorb. It really
Yeah.
is. I mean, think about like Hurricane Katrina. We had to go through that where we took 5.5 million people and we had to redisperse them throughout the country. And we've talked to people like that later on in life, like 5 and 10 years later. And I have people that have been buying and selling homes. And some of them have said simply, "Hey, listen, I'm never going back to New Orleans. Not going to happen. I'll visit family, but I don't ever want to live there because of the situation that they were physically put into." But the strain on some of the communities was just tough. I mean, here in Metro Detroit, we took on, what was it, like 50 or 55,000 people from Katrina.
For
And even
sure.
then, to integrate these guys wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. And thinking about a country as small as Poland, which I'm kind of curious now. Poland's population. Okay, so Poland has 38 million people as a population. So essentially, they're looking at their population to balloon 10%. 10%.
That many people live in Poland. I don't know that I realized that.
Yeah. So putting that into perspective, they're having 4 million people that they're anticipating crossing the border, and we had 5.5 million people displaced from Katrina. I mean, we're talking like a 1% or let's say a 1.5% displacement for us. We're looking at a 10% population increase. Not even a displacement. These people just weren't even for at all.
Wild.
And the vast majority of them will not go back. Because that's what happens after you're
For
displaced.
context, that'd be like the United States of America absorbing somewhere between 30 and 40 million people.
Yeah. Or here in Metro Detroit, think about Metro Detroit and just adding an extra 400,000 people into the population in 8 days, 9 days.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Where do you go? Where do you put them?
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's dig into that. So we've got Russia, who right now accounts for a little bit over a third of all the energy for Europe.
Yep.
Um,
11th largest economy in the world and third
yeah,
energy producer in the world, right? Yep.
yeah, and we import some of their energy as well. So here's
Yep.
the rough part of this whole thing, right? So we've seen our gas prices jump just in the last couple of days, 11 cents, which is, I mean, going back to Katrina, the largest jump since Katrina. I filled up yesterday at 3.89 a gallon. It's 3.99 when I drove by this morning. Um, that's not to be missed. I mean, to be real, 10 cents a gallon, it doesn't seem like a lot, but when it's 10 cents a gallon every 3 or 4 days for 2 weeks, that's a lot. Now,
Yeah.
here's the interesting study on this. So we've got, and this is where I think as Americans we need to start stepping back and looking more at a 10,000-foot view, because I feel like these last maybe 10 or 12 years, and I'm not speaking politically, I'm just speaking generally, we've been a little more isolated, where the vast majority of Americans, I see people putting on Facebook every single day, hey, let's lower gas prices, lower gas prices, lower gas prices. Look at how bad the economy is doing, blah, 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 blah. Yet, in a Pew survey that just came out, 10,000 people, 92% of Americans want to stop the energy coming out of Russia into either the United States or the EU. And then should that happen, we go to a 100%. Now let's think about that. If we go to a 100% halt, our gas prices are going to skyrocket past 4 up to 5.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. It's just going to happen because we get some of ours from the Middle East. We produce some of ours, right? And now we'll be in a heavier competition with the EU because they're going to pay the dollars for oil. They're going to pay the dollars for natural gas from somewhere, which is going to come largely from the Middle East and also from us and our own companies. They're going to be willing to sell it to them because they're willing to pay a higher dollar. Which, I mean, the good news is we're bringing dollars back into America through exporting. The bad news is it's at a cost for the average American, because we're going to have to start paying more as well to keep the oil and to keep the natural gas here. It's
Gosh,
interesting.
you know what that makes me think of? Like so much of our economy and our feeling of our economy, whether or not we're in a recession or not, is a lot of it's psychological.
A lot of it's psychological, and then a lot of it is from World War II to now, we've turned into a global economy, not necessarily
Sure.
a local economy,
Yeah.
right? And we
Well,
know
here's
that.
what I mean by that, by the way.
What's that?
Here's what I mean by that, by the way. It's like when gas goes up $1 a gallon, right? So like I don't know how big. I would say the average person's gas tank is probably somewhere between 15 and 20 gallons.
Mm-hmm.
So gas goes up $1 a gallon. You're talking an extra $20 a fill up. Okay, so $20 a fill up. Let's pretend you're filling up. What do you think? Once a week?
Yeah.
Like $80 a month. There's 2 of you in your house. It's $160 a month.
$2,000
$2,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right? $2,000 a year.
A lot of money.
Gas goes up $2. It's $4,000 a year, which now we're turning into an extra, like that's $300 something, $300 to $350 a month. And it's a Ford Escape payment. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, and let's couple that down the other way, right? So the argument can be made that we're now becoming more of a work from home economy. 60% of all jobs can be done from home and all those things.
Sure.
Now, on the other side, we've seen just in the last couple of days here, mask mandates from the hardest, most arduous fighters for masks lift.
Yeah.
Specifically California and New York, right?
Yep.
I mean, a New York mayor actually came out and said, hey, and I thought this was actually very cool. I want every single parade we can do or that we've done in the past. I want them all this year. Every one of them. I want to bring the life back to New York. I want to go back full steam, right? Like he is gung ho on this thing. Consequently, most of the major tech employers announced this week that they're bringing people back into the office. So Apple said, okay, we're bringing people back in 1 day a week. Microsoft said 2 days a week, and so on and so forth. Google said 1 day a week, and then they're going to roll it up to 2 and then possibly 3 days. Now, here's the interesting thing. A lot of these people moved away, right? Like a lot of the Google people moved to Arizona. Some of the Apple people I know kind of made this little conglomerate in Nevada. Here's the interesting thing. Like with this, especially this last jobs report, and then what Apple's had to do to retain employees, they're going to have to come to some sort of a compromise on the work from home and not work in the office full time, or else they will leave.
Yeah.
They will. I mean, engineers at General Motors are saying, hey, if you're bringing us back down to the RenCen, if you're bringing us back down to the Warren Tech Center, Stellantis, same thing. If you're bringing us back into Rochester or whatever's next to Rochester, I can't remember the name of Auburn Hills.
Auburn Hills, yeah.
That's okay. We'll just go get a different job.
Yeah.
It's okay. We'll just go work for somewhere else.
For sure. It's a retention thing. It's an attraction thing. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because like we've got some nifty studies that are starting to come out now that we're 2 years into this, showing that productivity is higher at home. And because of lack of sociability, people's happiness level at their jobs are actually lower. So again, one of those things where when you look at the surface level of a thing versus the deep down dive, there are two very different stories going on. So like personally, Austin, I like to work from home. And you and I have had this conversation where, working from home is one of the cornerstones of what we offer. And at the same time, we're looking at the initiatives like, okay, how do we get people to want to be back in the office? And for me, it goes back down to sociability. Like I'll bumble through the woods for like 3 days on my own, doing all my work by phone and a little bit of work by Zoom. I won't leave my house for 2 days.
Yeah.
That'll happen.
It's been happening to me like crazy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like yesterday, I did not leave my house one day. All my work from home, went out and had dinner, came back. That's it.
What's interesting is like for us, it's great. Like it's been great for me. It's been great for my family. I feel like I'm more efficient, right? I'm able to.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that I think in a way that it's not that it's been detrimental, but like newer people, like people that we're training, people we're getting up and running. Like one of the things that we've experienced is it makes it harder because so much of our business is nuanced, situational, right? And so, and you miss out on some of that. That's the power of being in person. Is there's a transfer of knowledge that happens person to person that is difficult to replicate over Zoom. No question about it. Right. So it's very interesting. Matter of fact, my neighbor was telling me that he was thinking about leaving his job. And I said, well, what would that look like? And he said, well, I'd probably have to go to a competitor and I'd probably have to work in more of like a home office setting versus a field setting, And I said, well, would that mean you need to relocate? And he said, no. Now, the only way that any of these companies have been able to attract talent is because everything's been moved virtually. So it's very interesting. It's almost like a tale of two economies yet again, right? That kind of thing.
That's it.
Yeah,
we're in that weird position right now where and that's exactly right. We've got to figure out as employers how this works going forward because everything is changing again. Right. And the old models are not working like they did before. And that's okay. So far we've covered what's been going on with energy in Russia. We've covered the Ukraine. The inflation report for for February is not out yet, but I anticipate that we might even see a number that starts with an 8.
You really think so?
I really think so. And I think so for two reasons. One, home prices have continued to increase and gas prices shot up. Those two are very, very heavy weighted factors in the inflation reports. They just are, right? And even when you take out home values, which has been very weighted heavily on pushing that number up, I mean, bread, eggs, milk, everyday staple items are far more expensive. The coffee I buy, the Folgers, I went and bought Folgers last week. I used to be able to get, 2 for $15 at Costco, like the big ones, right? And now they're 1 for $10. Which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a 30% increase.
Big increase.
Yeah. And that's how it's getting us, right? We're being nickeled and dimed one little thing at a time. Right. Oh, well,
you add that up in the 60 things you bought in your grocery cart that day. It's like your grocery bill just went up $100,
That's it. Yeah. Oh, and I'm going to plug my new video that I dropped last week. We're doing another one this week. The top 10 most expensive home sales in 2021. 6 through 10 I've got up. 1 through 5 I'll have up on Wednesday. It's actually a cool video. It's like, who doesn't like looking at luxury properties? Let's be real. I'm never going to live in one.
It's the coolest. Yeah.
It's the coolest. Yeah.
It's the coolest. Yeah.
Matt Stafford's house may or may not be on one of those two videos. You have to watch.
It's a May. Spoiler alert, it's a May.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then we had the jobs report drop yesterday, which was way higher than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
678,000 jobs added to the economy last month.
Yeah.
And then I found a visual of what that looks like each month of the year.
Okay.
It was the third highest month in the last 12 months that jobs have been added, pushing the unemployment rate down to 3.8%.
So
And remember, yeah, I was gonna say 4% is considered 100% employment
yeah.
because there are a certain number of people that are just gonna opt out of the economy for whatever reason, right? Because when you're on, and I didn't know this until recently, until I started looking into it. When you're on maternity leave or you're on paternity leave, even though you're employed, you're not working. You've opted out of that job for X amount of time. So you're technically considered unemployed because even though you have a job, you're not actually physically doing the job, right? If you're taking space like college students used to say, I want to take a gap year or gap semester.
Uh-huh.
People will take a gap year on employment and say, you know what, I'm going to choose to go travel the world. I've saved a couple of bucks to my name. I want to go see some things. Okay. Are they unemployed? Sure. But are they forcibly unemployed? No.
No.
And then corresponding with that,
3.8%.
3.8%,
Like,
3.8%.
remember when we were doing this? We did this Zoom, like we started this whole thing at the beginning of the pandemic. Like it like went like instantly we had unemployment that we had never seen. And it was like, oh my gosh, everything's gonna blow apart. And oh my gosh, it was like what did it hit during that time? What was the peak?
16.5%.
16 and a half. We're down to
Yeah.
3.8.
And then, I mean, in several industries, it really skewed it upwards, right? Really skewed it upwards. And when you look at the unemployment, it's interesting the way that works. So this is nifty to me. So during the last recession, the unemployment rate that was skewed up, we hit around 9 to 12% hovering for about 30 months, right? It kind of went up and down between 9 and 12%. But when
Yeah.
you look at age groups, the millennials were upwards of 28%. That's where they peaked out. And where that had fallen was millennials, I mean, such as us, we were getting out of college, like we're old millennials. So we were out of college and we had our first jobs and we had a couple years of experience. It really affected the people that were 5 years younger than us, where they got out of college, they had the degree, but they had no experience. And then jobs looked at those guys and said, hey, where we would normally hire you for 40,000, maybe we'll do an unpaid internship because I can go get the guy with 5 years of experience for 40,000 a year now because unemployment is so high.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That guy at 5 years of experience used to be worth 70 or 80,000. The guy with 10 years of experience used to be worth, 100 to 125,000. We saw this predominantly in the engineering field, where everything shifted down 30% as far as wages go. And now on the other side of it, so we had a half a generation of people decide not to be engineers anymore. And here we are on the other side, General Motors, Ford, the Stellantis, which is Chrysler. I cannot wrap my head around that name. All of these other companies are just scrambling for electrical and mechanical engineers. And they're paying top dollar out of school. Because that's what happens. A momentary thing today causes a generation or half a generation to switch majors into something different where they think they're going to be higher paid. And then that creates a gap of employment. Generally speaking, this is interesting. So this is something, guys, tell your kids growing up. If there's an abundance of something today, that's probably what you want to go into. Because everybody else is going to see that would be going into and say, oh, shoot, there's an abundance of this. So I'm going to reroute to this instead. But too many people will do it. Too many people will do it.
God, I would tell people with unemployment this low,
Mm-hmm.
do whatever it is that you want. There's going to be a job. I don't like,
Yeah. And then again, that's the interesting part. So wage growth was minimal last month versus the month before, which some people are celebrating and some people are lamenting. It just depends on what side of the fence you're looking at, right? Some people are looking at that like, hey, wages need to grow for affordability. And then other people are saying, well, wages need to pause for affordability. Because if wages continue to grow, businesses have to charge more, which means wages need to grow. And on the far side of it, same thing, right? Well, wages need to grow so I can afford more things. So it's a interesting cat and mouse game, like which came first, the chicken or the egg, wage growth or the cost of goods.
I know.
Yeah, yeah. Which brings us, I think, to where the interest rate's been. So
Yeah. So talk about that. Like, what do you think the overall impact is going to be on interest rates?
yeah,
This
yeah.
is interesting to me.
So the Fed has been very clear. So going into December and then first week of January, I was putting out there that hey, we're going to see 3, maybe 4 rate increases all 2022. That has been revised. We're going to see 5, maybe 7 rate increases. That's just where we're at. And in
Yeah,
anticipation
sure.
of it, mortgage rates already shot up from 3 to 4% in 40 days. Like it literally just ticked, tick, 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 and then ended up at 4.03% as an average, and has now since come back down to 3.85. But mostly because every time there's uncertainty, the Fed drops rates or pauses raising them. So the Fed has now said, hey, you know what? We're not going to raise rates as much as we were originally planned to in March. Now they're going to raise the rates, right? They're going to raise the rates, but
Uh-huh.
not as much because of the whole Ukraine situation. So now we saw interest rates tick back down from 4 to 3.85. And because of that, we've seen a ton of buyers get into the market. I mean, I saw an email come across my desk the other day from another agent that said, Mission Impossible 2022, buying a house. And that's true.
Yeah,
And that's
sure.
because the home prices are up, the
Yep.
interest rates are up. So the home costs more. The money to buy the home costs more.
Yep.
And there's 20 buyers for it. There's 20 butts for every seat. There's 20 buyers for every home right now, right? We are literally at the lowest point of homes on market since the National Association of Realtors started tracking that number in the early 1970s. The absolute lowest. The absolute. There are almost twice as many real estate agents as there are homes on the market right now, which is crazy. Which is
Crazy.
yeah, and I think you're in a very enviable position if you're a move up buyer. If you're a move down seller, and this
Yeah.
is what I told my parents, this is what I told my parents, and the luxury crowd, this is what I'm telling those guys as well. 6 months. The 6 months. The market is going to level off. It is going to level off late in the year and early next year, but your last push of appreciation is happening right now.
You think?
Yeah, I do. I do. Last major push. So I'm looking at folks like my parents, right? Where
By the way, all predictions guaranteed wrong or your money back.
yeah, right. I know. No, that's a fair
I
point.
know it's so hard to predict. Yeah.
It's hard to read the tea leaves and look at the data, but the data, to me, the data is just shouting at me like this is where this needs to go. So I'm looking at somebody like my parents, where their next step is the step down from that 3,600 square foot house they're in into maybe a 2,000 square foot condo or house, right? Which is maybe worth 40% of the value of their current property, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think their property is going to go up another 7 or 8% this year, topping out in October, and then finally starting to crest and then go up that 3 to 5% per year on out after this, allowing wage growth and or wages and everything else to kind of catch up to it, because inflation and everything else has gotten a little bit more expensive and cars have gotten more expensive, which I'll talk about that in a second. Because of all of those things, people are now looking at it saying, should we really jump up to that next house, or can we live in this house for a while longer? Which of course is the self-perpetuating less homes on the market, which makes homes more expensive because people are opting not to move. And I've got a nifty study that just came out around that. And then you have the luxury market. So now you've got people like my folks, where, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, if there's not a need to move down, just wait 6 months. Wait 6 months. My parents' home is worth around, let's just call it 600,000 right now as a round number.
Uh-huh.
They could pick up 50 grand in equity over the next 6 months. And there's no need to move. They don't have
Yeah.
to move.
Yeah.
There's nothing physical about the house that they need to move or change, right? And then last but not least, we've got the luxury market, which has remained interestingly more stagnant than expected these last couple of years. So they didn't see the big jumps that the rest of the market saw. And there's a couple of reasons for it. But like at in the luxury level, if you look at just a straight price per square foot for Birmingham and Bloomfield over the last 24 months, going from January 1st of this year straight back 24 months, the price per square foot only went up $3. That's it. That's it. Now, the number of homes on the market has gone down drastically. So we used to have a pretty running steady 7 to 8 month supply of inventory. Second half of last year, that dropped down to 120 days, and now We're about 45 days of inventory. So again, if you're in that luxury crowd and you're considering that move down or move out, and you want to recoup as much of that equity as possible, second half of the year is probably your time. Because now's your time that those guys that can buy that house are freeing up the capital to buy that house. And the two reasons for it are because A, just like everybody else, the luxury crowd decided not to go on the market this year. And then B, our loan limits have changed drastically in the last 4 months. Like our conventional loans now, I mean, like the jumbo loans, which are your luxury market, that used to be what, 417, 418,000 or whatever that is. Now it's 625. So now you can buy a house with 20% down at 785 and get the best rate possible and still not a jumbo.
Well, even
Still,
more importantly, you could buy a house with 5% down
mhm,
at whatever.
mhm.
It's like
At 700, give or take a little bit.
700. Yeah,
Yeah, 680, whatever that number. Yeah, 680.
whatever
That's
the
right.
number is.
And then Fannie and Freddie have extended their conforming up to $1 million loan limit, which is craziness to me, by the way.
Crazy.
Craziness. But that's okay. That's okay. So if you're 20% down, you could buy a home at 1.250 million, which is a lot of money, by the way, guys. I don't care who you are. It's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
And you're still paying the rate of the day. Your regular, everyday, vanilla conforming mortgage rates, and you have no extra conditions other than just a conforming loan. And the reality is, in that market, people are putting 30 or 40% down. So people are buying the homes at 1.3 to 1.6, and now they're able to get the conforming rate, which now means they can buy 20, 30% more home than they could 4 months ago at a better payment. And we're seeing those effects. Like I'm seeing that effect in Birmingham and Bloomfield because I'm monitoring it for the last 2 months. I'm seeing that effect actually happening, like right now. Like if you drive out to Birmingham right now, like a lot of new construction has slowed down because of the cost of labor and the cost of goods, but not in Birmingham, not in Northville, not in
Fly.
Brooklyn.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, builders are building as fast as they can because they know that now's the time, today's the day. They know that. Builders have been holding on for lots in those 3 communities specifically for years are building because they know what happens. They know what happens when loan limits go up. More people can afford more, and
Yep.
people trapped in there. And trapped is a bad word because any home at $400,000 or $500,000 is a great home. Like let's
Yep.
not believe that point, right?
Yep.
But there are people that felt like they wanted that next luxury property, and they thought that they would have to wait another 3 or 4 years to get it, and all of a sudden they're finding themselves in a position where they can have it today. So what they're doing is they're going to buy it today. It's a lot of information.
It's a lot of information. Okay.
Yeah.
If you were giving advice to an average family of 4 who was thinking about moving school districts, selling, buying, right?
Yeah.
And you took all those things that we just took into play: rising energy costs, interest rate considerations. Right now, they've kind of tapered off, but they're going to go up. Inflation going up. Like, what's the advice that you would give an average family of 4 looking to make a move, maybe from one community to another, change school districts, whatever it is? I mean, the reasons that what's the advice that you'd give someone, Mike?
Yeah. If you're moving up, get it done. Just get it done.
Why do you say that?
I'm saying that because this is not going to get any easier or any better. Home values are not going to go down. There is no bubble. There's a perceived bubble, but there is no bubble. There will be a little bit of a slowdown of appreciation, but it's not going to go backwards. Even if it does go backwards 5 or 10%, you're still going to end up ahead. If you don't own a home, buy a home. I'm going to put that in the chat as well.
You put that right in the chat.
Here's the reason for this. So rents went up 14% nationally last year, 16% here locally. It's anticipated that they're going to go up an additional 10% roughly, give or take a little bit this year here in Metro Detroit. But here's the funny thing. Rents always go up. Over a 30-year period, they always go up 3 to 5% on average. Okay?
Average out. Like some years you might see a jump of 10%, some years you might see 0, but on average you're saying 3-4%.
Yeah. So let's play this out. And I'm gonna use another statistic for this. The average American before 2008 was in a home for roughly 7 years.
Yep.
Right. Now, the number finally moved last year just a little bit. So the number was higher than I thought it was. The average American is now in a home 13.2 years,
Okay.
which again contributes to the same reason why there are not a lot of properties on the market. The average person that moved up last year was only in their home 6 years, which is interesting. So what had happened there was people bought homes back in 12, 13, 14 very smartly. They went all in, they pushed their chips into the table. A lot of people bought homes that probably should have waited another year or two. And all of a sudden they found, well, heck, our home values are up 30, 40, 50, 60%. I've got 100 grand sitting here I didn't have a couple of years ago. I now have a family and a baby and a thing and a da-da-da-da. So yes, I want to be in the right school district. And guess what? I'm sitting on a pile of cash in my current home. I may as well make that happen. And especially coupled with the low 2.8% interest rates that we had, in some cases, their home payments either remained the same or went down, or more than likely went up incrementally, right?
Yep.
Because a lot of people looked at 2020 and 2021 and saying, okay, I've got a loan of 200,000 and my interest rate is 4.25% because I got it just pre-pandemic or anywhere in that time frame.
Yep.
Now, instead of holding the loan at 200,000, I can go get a loan at 350,000, get into that next home into the school district that I want, but it's now 2.8%.
Yep.
Do you have a mortgage calculator by chance?
You know what's funny? I was like looking for it. I don't.
There
It
we
must
go.
be in my
Okay.
car. I could get it done though. What do you want?
200,000 at 2 point. There we go. 200,000 at 4.25%.
4.25.
Yep.
984.
984. Now go 350 at 2.8%.
2.875.
Yeah.
1452.
1452. That's it. So the difference was $500 a month.
Yep.
And a lot of families looked at that and said, okay, we can do an addition on our home, cost 100 grand. We can go redo kitchens and bathrooms. Or even worse, we can opt for private school. I don't want to say worse because I'm a very big proponent of private school, by the way. Just
Yep.
I think that's a known thing. I mean, Austin, you and I have had a lot of conversation around this.
Yep. That sucks. Yep.
I'll tell you, I mean, you've got 2 kids. You know, let me think. You tell me, cost of private school for 2 kids or moving your payment up $500 a month. Which one's less expensive?
I'm moving my payments up by $500.
Yeah, because that's 6,000 a year. 6,000 a
Yeah.
year is like half the cost of one kid right now for private school. Let's be real.
Yeah. I mean, I have elementary school, but yeah. Yep. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I've got a friend that's sending her daughter to Notre Dame. That's 17,000 a year plus books and everything else. You're 20 grand. The UAD where I went starts at 12 for middle school.
Yep. Yep.
Right? Like this stuff is not cheap anymore. This is not, you know, and you know, I've got a friend that put her kids through you know, Natalie Reed, right? She put her kids through Our Lady of Victory, OLV. Not cheap anymore.
Not cheap.
Nope. Nope. So a lot of people looked at that and said, well, we would probably have to go the private route because this is the education that we choose for our kids. And then instead we're like, oh, wait a minute. We can actually get into the district we want. And it's more of a cost savings than an actual hard cost because of what we don't have to spend over here.
Sure. Yeah.
So a lot of people that bought their homes in 12, 13, 14 opted in 19, 20, 21 just to move instead of do the kitchen, do the bathrooms, finish the basement, do the addition, do all those things, right? It's just what happened.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Now on renting, you know, the average rent in Metro Detroit, and I'm including Ann Arbor in this number, is now a little bit north of $1,200 a month. I think the number I read was $1,238.
1238 gets you like a 2-bedroom apartment. It's not like
Yeah.
Now think about it doesn't get you much. It's kind
Yeah,
of
so rents went up 14% last year nationally, 16% here locally. They go up 3 to 5% every single year, no matter what. So that's let's call it 4% on average. If you're going to spend 13 years in the next property, I'm going to take 1238. I'm going to multiply 1.04. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 13 and a half years, 14 years. That 1238 payment is now 2143.
Yeah.
But If you moved up to that $1,450 payment, let's call it, to buy that really nice $350,000 mortgaged house, which is like $400,000 after down payment, right?
Yeah.
13 years from now, your payment's still $1,450.
Well, that's just it. It's like you're locking in on the day's payment.
You're
Like,
locking in today's
like
payment.
your taxes go up a little bit, but like the overall payment
Sure.
stays pretty well the same.
Sure. So, well, let's run that out. So your taxes are, let's call it 1/3 of the payment, and they're capped at an increase of 3% per year.
Is it 3 or
So
5?
no,
Is it
let's say
3?
it's, I believe it's 3. Well, no,
Is
it,
it
it
3?
floats, it floats with the inflation rate, so the number's higher now.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair.
Let's say 5. Let's say 5.
Sure.
So it's 3 to 5% of your total payment, or 3 to 5% of a third of your payment. Which
Right.
one's better? A third of your payment.
Right.
Yeah. It goes up. It goes up less fast.
Now, by the way, you're also paying down your mortgage, and by the
Paying down
way,
your
you're also
taxes
potentially
back.
appreciating. Like, there's
Yep.
so many people right over the past couple of years that are like, "Oh, I'm going to time this thing on a market crash." First of all, if you've been talking about timing the market, you've already lost $60,000 over the last couple of years on a $300,000 home. Like you,
Easily.
like I was talking to an agent that I was networking with. It's like he's got a client that could buy up to 300 with the previous interest rates. And now interest rates have gone up, and they didn't like what they saw at 300, and this is going on for 2 years. And now the same home that would have cost them 250 previously now costs 300. You know what I mean? And so it's like
So
you would have already lost the money. And then secondly, okay, so you're trying to time it. Well, the truth of the matter is like people move for a reason. People move for school districts or what, like people move for a reason, right? They have kids, whatever it is. It's like trying to time the stock market. Like you might be
yeah.
able to time it, but the truth of the matter is that if you're in your home long enough, you can't lose. You
Nope.
know, you're locking in on a lower payment. You're always going to get appreciation. You're paying down the mortgage. It's like in the market that you buy in is the market that you sell in. It's just, you know. So if you're planning on being in your home for 10 or 20 years, I've been having that conversation with a friend of ours, and they want to buy their next home and it's their forever home, right? They really like, at some point people move into a home and you're like, I want to raise my kids here. I want to be here for 20 years. And I go, well, then what are we worried about $25,000 one way or another? If you're going to have to live somewhere for the next 20 years, buy the house you want. It might cost more than what you want it to. And that's okay because the payment is going to feel like nothing 20 years from now or
And
even
that
5 years from now.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And it's interesting because, and again, let's look at the rents, right? A lot of people are that, and that's where a lot of people that I see are saying, well, I want to wait for the bubble to crash, are the people that are renters,
Yeah, sure.
right? And if you've got a rent of, let's say, 1,200, your basic 1,200 a month right now, and let's say you wait 5 years, right? So
Yeah.
1,200 a month, and let's say you wait 5 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That rent is now 1,531, right? Now,
Yeah.
let's say that you're going to purchase at the same level, but we have to take into account that you're paying down a mortgage and you're getting taxes back on the mortgage insurance discount premium, whatever you call it,
Yeah.
deduction,
Yeah.
mortgage interest
Yeah.
deduction. So at 1,400, right? That's about right because you get about 200 a month back on your taxes, right? 2,200
Just
is
the
the
mortgage.
average.
That's federal only. I don't think you don't get anything on state, do you?
But the average person in Michigan gets back $2,200 a year as what they get back on their taxes, not
Yeah.
their write down on their income, but the actual physical money that comes in a check form back from the federal
Yeah.
government. 2,200 is the number.
Yeah.
So right there, renting and buying is the exact same, right? Now on the same mortgage over that 5 years, you're going to average around $350 a month that you're going to pay down on the loan, right? So 350 by 5 years is 60 months. So that's 21,000,
Yep.
right? So if you buy a house at 300,000, which is the Metro Detroit average right now, it's going to have to go down minimum to 280 at some point in time, right?
Yep.
Which 4 or 5% before you break even.
Before you break even.
Before you break even.
It's not happening. It
It's not
might
happening.
happen, but it's not
It's not.
happening.
Now let's say you buy a house at 200,000 and you match that payment. No, well, and here's the other thing. So that payment of 1,200 kept going up. So now your average payment isn't $1,200. The average payment during that 5-year time is actually $1,350. So that's another $150 a month by 60 months. So that's another $9,000.
Yep.
So now that has to go down, not just 21,000, has to go down 30,000 to actually match dollar for dollar. 30,000. That's 10%. That's not happening.
That's
Right?
not
And
happening.
over a 10-year period, if you extrapolate out the same numbers, and because this is what I do, because I love doing this. If you extrapolate out the same numbers, the interest deduction, what rents go up, and what you're paying down on the loan, that same property over a 10-year period, and what we know is the average Americans in their home 13.2 years, that property has to go down in value 27% before you're even. So $300,000 multiplied by 0.27. So that thing has to go down 81,000 in value.
81,000.
That's not going to happen. So that $300,000 house has to be worth 219 before you break even. Break even. But there's other stuff. And also, we know there's other stuff. There's stuff like the place you create memories, putting the paint on the wall you actually want, or doing some
Yep.
trim work right behind
Yep.
me, right? There's creating a life, and there's all those other things other than just dollars that add on top as far as a higher value goes.
Yeah.
And I think when we're looking at this from a very logical decision, we're forgetting that when we're hopping from apartment to apartment to apartment. And guys, that's what's going to happen this year. If you got to release your apartment and you haven't been through a lease in the last year or 2 years or 3 years, be ready for a 15 to 25% rent increase, period. And for a lot of families, that means start packing because you're moving.
Yep.
I'm not kidding. Like, I mean, I've got a friend right now where and he actually, well, and you know him, but he sold his house and he's like, well, I'm going to rent for a year and see what happens and wait for the bubble to burst. So he rented for $1,500. He just released at $2,000 because he can't find a house still. The home, all that happened was the homes got more expensive and so did his rent. Those are our realities right now. It just is what it is. Yeah. Anyway, I just went off on like 19 tangents.
No, I know it's well, but it all blends together. Okay. So what advice would you give someone? Okay. What advice would you give someone, Mike, that's thinking about selling their home and moving up in school districts and is thinking, I'm going to sell my home in June this year or July, or maybe even July, and that way you're like lining up your move so that you're lining up your move at the start of school year.
Yeah, no, and that makes perfect sense. Number one, we got to get out to the house so we can get the pricing done. We can get any staging or remodeling recommendations done, any paint changes done, any carpet changes or carpet cleaning recommendations done. There are a lot of things, guys, that we can skip right now. We've got some grace in the market that we don't need to do. And there are some things that still add a tremendous amount of value, like 4 or 5x what the cost is. And those things may have changed in the last couple of years, but they're still there. I mean, hey, if I can get out to your house today and we're thinking about going on the market in June and I can get you a list that cost you $5,000 over the next 3 months to complete, but it adds 25,000 in value, I think that's fair. I think that's worth more time. So
vice versa.
Definitely do that,
man. The thing that you could save them is I'm thinking about doing 25,000 in repairs, but it's only going to get me 15 back. Like we can help.
Yeah, negate all that. Because what we can get in the market today, we can get away with a lot more than we could have 3, 4, 5 years ago. Second, we need to start looking for properties now. We do. The majority of properties out there right now have sellers that need 15 to 45 days after closing because they're waiting to put their home on the market until they find their next home. And that person needs the money to finance their next home. You know, bridge loans are not as prevalent as they used to be. They're very, very rare right now. So you can't just sell a home, buy a home, and use the equity. We have a program that we use to do that. And even then, most people don't opt for it just because they choose not to. No other good reason. They just choose not to. So what I would say is both, let's get the home ready. Let's get the home photographed. Let's get the home market ready where we can be on the market the right way in 7 days. Should we find something you love?
Yep.
And start looking. I mean, guys, we're March 1st. We're in the March right now. Like the market is so dry. The home that you want may come on the market 3rd week of March, not 2nd week of June.
You got to think like if you're if you're moving, so today's March 1, and let's pretend that you're like just starting your process of moving or just starting the process of buying a house. Like let's pretend it takes you 30 days to find the house. So we're already at April.
Yep.
Then let's pretend it takes another 30 days to close on the house. We're already May 1st. And then right now, seller occupancy is on almost every deal where you allow the seller, once they have already closed on the house and have the money in the hand and the whole thing so they can find their new house, 30 to 60 days. So like
So we're June
as
1st
it
to July
stands right
1st.
now, you're June or July 1st. If you
If,
started today,
yep. If you wrote an offer on a home and got it accepted today, your
you're
first
June
available move
1st.
date is June 1st or July 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand what you're saying, Mr. and Mrs. Sellers. You're going to need the money out of the property to get it done. Great. We just write a slightly longer contract. So we write a 40-day close instead of a 30-day close. We're ready to go on market. We get your home on the market. And in this market, it will move. Simple enough. It will move. We'll get you
Yep.
top dollar as long as we're prepared for it. It will
Yep.
move. Yeah. But look at what's happening. And we all have this is a more common horror story, but no different. No different. So Sadie on the team, she's got a link and then she's got to turn in. Right.
Yep.
And she waited and waited and waited and waited like
A
she normally does.
car. Yeah, sure. Yep.
A car, a Lincoln. Yeah, yeah. And as normal, like she went to the dealer the week or 2 weeks before the car was due and was like, "Hey, listen, I need a new car. Give me one of these over here. Give me one of those over there. Give me that over there."
Yep.
Out. Okay, great. Well, I still need a car because I got to turn this one in. I like the Aviator. What does that look like? Well, actually, that's the fastest car we can get in. We're only looking at a 7-month build time.
7 months?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Now they extended her lease gracefully because it was her first extension, so she'll be able to bridge the gap in that 4 to 7 month time frame it will take to get that from one truck to the other. But dude, I went through it myself where like I even called my guy and I was like, "Hey, I'm reading things about Cadillacs being way delayed. Maybe we should do a build and an order." And he just said, "No, man, we'll just do it like every other time. I'll just look in the system a couple weeks before you're due, and I'll just tag one and I'll have it shipped over to my dealership, and then we'll just bring yours in." And I said, "Great." And so the time came, and he's like, "Well, I haven't seen anything for tagging yet. No, I haven't seen anything for tagging yet. I haven't seen anything for tagging yet. I haven't." And that was the same phone call every single week for 3 months. And finally, I was like, "Shit, I'm out of time. I need to go and do something now." Now, fortunately, Cadillac, I did sing them a very nice sob story. I sent them a very long email with my history of General Motors and my dad working there, and I've
Yeah,
had
yeah.
10 Motors cars. And I did let them know, "Hey guys, you lose me once, you lose me forever." Like their Navigator's sitting right there on the lot right now that they're running deals on that they can't get off the lot, but Escalades you can't get in.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will walk over and go get something different. I will. Grand Wagoneers nipping at their heels. That's about to be released. All right, Cadillac. Once I'm gone, I'm
Those are
gone.
sharp too. Those are really sharp.
Oh, those Grand Wagoneers I really like. I really
Yeah,
like.
they're good.
And shoot, I would have taken an XT6 at this point. And frankly, I like those vehicles. I think they're great. Even the XT5 is a great car. Like Cadillac does not make a car that's not great right now. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
But fact is, there were Lincolns on the lot. I would gladly have taken a Lincoln. Those are nice vehicles. They're sharp. They're high tech. I love them. And so they said, "Great. Well, we'll just give you a loaner car until yours comes in." So they gave me a loaner car for almost 6 months. We can't do that in the housing industry, guys.
We can't do that in the housing industry. Yeah, for sure.
You can't call me up and say, "Hey, I need to be in August, and today is June 10th." Like normal, like a normal market. And then we go out and we see 20 homes. We make an offer. We may get it. We may not get it. We make a second offer on one of the other 20 homes, and then we get it. And then you close in 30 days and you move in 15, and that puts you in the move date of around August 10th. We can't do that. And what I most certainly can't do is say, "Hey, man, I know I can't move you on August 10th. Let me put you into this loaner house for the next 6 months.
That's not how it works.
Let me extend your lease on your own property where you're living for 6 months." Ain't no landlord doing it because they know they get more.
Right.
And ain't no buyer letting you sit there for 6 months in their house because they need to be
Yeah.
in themselves. So point is, guys, like this is what's happening in the market right now. Like we've seen this with I mean, how many times has everybody on the Zoom gone to order anything and it'd be like, "Oh, 5-week delay." Hey, I've got a friend of mine right now that's all excited because she's about to get couches delivered in 2 weeks. Or
Couches, everything. Yeah.
dude, she ordered the couches last May.
Last
Last
May.
May. I mean, it used to be like 2 to 4 weeks out on couches. I mean, yeah, they're nichey. It's a nichey couch, but still, it used to be 2 to 4 weeks out on a longer build on a couch. No,
6
we've got
months. 8
we've
months.
got new home builders, guys. Get with us on any new home construction. Please take us with you, because we've got builders telling people right now, hey, you know what? It might, like on a what is a typical 5-month builder saying, hey, it might be a year. Plan on 14 months. We should be able to hit it. We think. But bring us with, because at the minimum, we can at least try to lock them down into the right time frame. So you're not sitting out there languishing saying, well, shoot, I hope my house gets built in the next 14 months. That would be nice. Because what I'm seeing right now in a lot of builder contracts are open-ended timeframes,
Yeah.
right? And even more so, priced in cost increases. So I'm seeing this now, and I saw this on 2 builder contracts in the last couple of weeks, where the builder priced in wage growth and the cost of material growth. So we don't know what the house is going to cost in 14 months. So first off, we're not getting the house for 14 months, and then we don't know what it's going to cost. It could cost 20-30% more
But if
than
you
what
want new
we.
build, that's what it looks like. Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
And that's why, guys, you got to get an agent involved, because we can at least push back and say, okay, why don't we do some caps in there? So we understand labor will go up, but let's cap that at 2%. We
Yeah.
understand supplies will go up. Let's cap that at 5%.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
understand that it might take longer to build a home than normal, but we need to cap that at 8 months, and then every month after that, you give my guy a discount. Something in there. We got to get something back. We're
What
we're
advice
placed.
would you give someone right now, Mike, that look, they've got an extra 50,000 in cash and they're thinking about buying a rental property at 200 grand and, putting 20% down. So putting 50 grand down. Probably out the door, you're probably more like 55 or $60,000 down, but you got the idea. What
Yeah.
advice are you giving that person right now?
6 months ago, I would have said, hey, throw it in the stock market. And as we know, everything will, level off and come down, as we've seen with the stock market over the last 60 days. Honestly, I'd say go ahead and just buy the house and buy a home, in my opinion, in a good school district, in a good area. Especially if you're looking in that, I'd rather see somebody put it into like a good property in a good district, maybe make a little less ROI, but you have better people that will maintain the home, versus like right now, I see some of these, and this is not to be offensive to anyone when I say this, but I see some of these investors going in and buying these homes at 50, 60, 70,000. They're putting some lipstick on it, and they're putting, frankly, tenants that they're going to have to kick out. At the end of the day, it's such a headache, such a headache. And that's not the intention for the average person. Like if you're an investor and you have 100 properties and that's just what you do, great. Then you can work through kicking tenants out every day of the week, and it's not that big of a deal. You have a
Yep, you're
system.
used to it. Yep.
You don't even need an attorney to kick somebody out. You could just walk into any court wherever the house is located and go to landlord tenant, that little plaque thing, and then just file the thing for 75 or 85 bucks or whatever it is for that city. And then you can
Yeah.
go in front of the judge and you get kicked out. It's actually very low cost to do. And if you follow the steps properly, it's easy. And who's got time for that if you're buying 1 or 2 investment properties or 3 investment properties and you have a full-time gig and you have a family, and all you're really looking to do is make a couple of bucks to provide for your family and
Yeah.
create some wealth, right? That's different. Then you start looking in, like, in my opinion, a Livonia or a Commerce or a Walled Lake or Warren north of 12 Mile. Even like a Sterling Heights, you can still get a couple of properties in that 200 to 300 range. Like you look in those areas where the people themselves are a little bit more stable, they're less transient, right? And then especially near the engineering centers. So Commerce and Livonia put you in striking distance of the proving grounds. Warren puts you within striking distance of the Warren Tech Center, all of those things, because General Motors, Chrysler, Ford, they're bringing people in on contract largely to work on projects. They're not bringing them in as full employees like they were. They're bringing in more contract labor, but high paid contract labor. And those guys are on a contract for 12, 18, 24 months. And then they move on to the next contract, which may be with Mercedes or maybe with a whole different company or even a whole different country. These people are, generally speaking, homeowners hiding as renters. Because if they're going into an area for 15 or 18 months, it's not worth it for them to purchase, because you need, at least, even in this market, even in this high appreciation market, you still need to stay in a home 24 months to break even on all the fees and costs and taxes of selling it,
Yep.
right? So a lot of these guys come into town and say, okay, well, I want to be in a nice community with a decent district near the GM Proving Grounds. Awesome.
Yep.
Great. So you want to be in like a South Lyon, a Brighton, a Milford, a Commerce, a Walled Lake. Great. We get this every day of the week. And then they
Yeah.
say, and I want to rent for 2 years because I might be going back to Colorado. I might be going to wherever next is after this.
Yeah.
Or they
Yeah.
may pick up my contract again. Who knows? But I don't. Right? Like there's a lot of people that work at what's it, Molly over on Haggerty Road, that they're coming in on contracts from Japan. They're staying 12, 14, 18 months, and then they're right back out to Japan again. It just is what it is, right? So that's what I would look at. Now, will you make as much as you will on a property in Wayne or Garden City or Detroit or, E-Course or East Point? No. But risk and reward, you also have a lot less risk.
Yeah, stability of it. Sure.
Yeah. Because you've got a person that's really a homeowner and will frankly maintain their property as such. And they actually tend to call their landlords a lot less. Like a lot of times, if there's a plumbing issue and they got to call a plumber or something happens, they literally just call the plumber because that's just what they do. Instead of calling and nickeling and diming that landlord.
Yeah.
So from a pain factor, those properties I believe are a lot easier, at least in my experience.
Yeah, there's something we said for the.
Yeah. And guys, don't forget, the government wants people to provide home ownership, right? So you're paying down a mortgage, you're making a few bucks on the side, and then when you're done with the property, you can 1031 exchange it into a different one. So if you buy a property that's like a stepping stone property, so if you have 25,000, not 50,000, then you're like, well, should I wait till 50,000 to get into the market as an investor? No. Go buy something decent in Ferndale with the 25,000. And
Yeah.
then rent that out for 3-4 years, make some money, pay down some principal, get some equity gained, and then take all of that money and then go buy a duplex with it, or go move up into the Royal Oak area, or go do something different with it that gets you that property that you
Stepping
actually
up.
want. Here's what I do
Yeah.
know. Here's what I do know. If you leave your money in the bank, it goes down in value every single year. Last year it went down in value 7.5%. I can tell you exactly how much your money went down in value. And I know this because that's the inflation rate. Right? If you had 50,000 in the bank on January 1st, 2021, 50,000. Today that money is worth $46,250.
Isn't
You
that
literally
wow?
lost $3,750 by leaving it in the bank.
Isn't that
Now,
wow?
you might make $250 because there are a couple money markets that are paying as high as 0.4 or 0.5%. So if you went to one of those guys, like I can't think of like an Ally, right? And you put it into their money market, you might make 0.4 or 0.5%. We're talking $250. That's what a 0.5% on 250 on $50,000 is. $250. So let's add $250 back in, which means you only lost $3,500. Because that's the value.
That's the value.
I understand it's an abstract concept, and it's like, well, yeah, I understand it, but do we really? I mean, I don't understand it sometimes. Like I look at them like, oh, hey, price of eggs, it was $3.99 before for the eggs I like. Now it's $4.99.
Yeah.
The gas pump went up $1. Everything went up in price over that last 12 months. Now my 50,000 doesn't look as good as it did 2 years ago. And inflation is not going to get better in the first half of this year. I'm sorry to say it's not. It's not. It's not. Interest rates have gone up, but they haven't had the great effect yet. It's a year-long play, guys. The reason why interest rates are going up is very simple. The government wants to limit corporate spending, right? They want to taper the economy. So instead of the economy going like this, they want to go more like this, a steady increase. And the only way to create those bumpers at the bowling alley right now for the government are interest rates up and down. That's all you get, because they want to raise interest rates to say to companies like Samsung, who's building a $2 billion chip factory in Texas. All right, build that chip factory. But after that, we really don't want you to build anything else right now.
Yeah.
We don't have the labor in America, and we don't have the supplies in America for you to build anything else. So we're going to make it more expensive to the point that you're going to opt not to. Easing all of that inflation. Which, something interesting that happened the other day, and I want to make sure I hit this one on the head. President Biden did sign into law, which is good. I think it's good. I think and this is a bipartisan thing, not a not a left thing and not a right thing. But up
Yeah.
until this point, made in America was defined as 55% of a product, whatever the parts of the product are, is being made in America, right?
Okay.
45% could be made somewhere else, but 55%. Now, which is also this is going to impact inflation negatively in the beginning, but help in the end. In 2023, the number is going to go up to 65%. In
Is that
2024,
right?
yep. In 2024, the number is going up to 75%.
Is that right?
Hmm.
I did
Yep.
not know that.
Yep. So
So they're trying to bring manufacturing back.
Yep. So contractors are heavily pushed to buy things made by other Americans, right? So if you want to win a government contract, the easiest way to do that, well, I mean, you got to be a reasonable price, of course, like everybody else, but you also got to
Yeah.
buy things from other Americans, right? But the definition of made in America is now changing again,
Huh.
which is really interesting to me. And a lot of that goes back to, again, we're looking down the barrel of this pandemic and we saw the chip shortage and we're like, holy heck, we can't even build cars. Like General Motors, this is interesting to me. To try to shore up chips, so their most expensive vehicle right now is the Escalade, right?
Yeah.
They have Escalades you can get without power seats for the first time in 20 years
Because of the chips.
because they save 2 chips.
Huh.
Yeah. Because the option is they can shore up a little bit of chip here, a little bit of chip there, a little bit of chip here, move backwards on the tech a little bit, but they can put out 2,000 more vehicles this year with the extra power.
Yeah. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And the government, and then again, this is a bipartisan. This is not a Biden thing. This is a both sides agree on doing this and have agreed on doing this. This is not one side or the
What
other. I don't
part of- How do you know these things?
I just read a lot.
Apparently, man. I read a lot too. I did not read that.
Yeah, that was in a couple of news articles that came up, so I looked into it a little bit
Think
more.
about an Escalade right now, and you got to reach down and do the
Crank
thing.
Yep. There was something interesting.
Does that mean like? Does that mean like a manual? Like you move the seat? Like
Yeah, you pull the thing up and you slide it up and you pull it and you push it back. I'm
no
not.
joke. All because of chips. So it's like we might as well get the product out.
Yep. And subsequently, a year ago when we got into this, right, the government started giving bonuses to companies like Samsung to say, okay, we need more chip manufacturing here.
Yeah.
And part of what had happened was China itself went through some very major lockdowns, more lockdowns than we saw here in the United States. So they were averaging like 20 or 25 weeks of manufacturing per year in 2021.
Yeah.
They just could not keep up with our chip demand or their chip demand for that matter. And if they're going to, I mean, let's be real, if they're going to send the chips somewhere, where are they going to send it? To their companies in their
Here.
first and then sell them to us. So this is a play to regain control of the processes, which I think is actually a smart long-term move.
Very smart.
Right? And then this article I saw in the New York Times.
Nice.
But check this out. Check this out.
What did it say?
As few as 10% of those will last long enough to make full-time living selling homes. So in some states, we saw as much as it looks like 10% jump in number of agents year over year. Oof, I'm looking at that. Georgia being the top one. And we're seeing those fall apart as well.
Man, we were able to bring on some wildly talented people during the pandemic.
That's true.
I'm talking to you. If you know who you are, like a couple of dozen of them, and just I mean, wildly talented people that entered into real estate, and they will make it because they're very, very good at what they do.
Yeah, and this a lot of this goes to when an agent becomes an agent. Most agents, the vast majority of them begin their career as an agent working with buyers because they're the easiest people to work. It's easier to gain a buyer client than it is a seller client. Can we agree on that?
Happier, yeah, all of it.
Yeah, they're happier people. Well, they were, but on a national level, homes are receiving 8 offers on average.
Yeah.
Even us. And guys, I mean, I will tell you this, we are highly skilled. I'm not saying that we're skilled, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm not putting any ego into this. I'm just being honest. The numbers show we are highly skilled in this market, and it's still taking us 1.1 offer accepted to 4.3 offers written.
Yeah.
Now that sounds like if you have not been in the market for a while and yep, you have a vague awareness of how hard the market is, that might sound like a bad number. But I'm telling you right now, guys, there are people that are writing 20 and 30 offers before they get one accepted as a buyer. I mean, go ask any friend of yours that has tried to buy a house in the last year and say, hey, is 1 in 4 or 1 in 3, is that good? Because that's where we're hovering. And they'll be like, yeah, who's that guy? We probably want to work with them. That's just the reality.
Just the reality.
Yeah. But they're chalking a lot of that up to exactly that. And so most agents start with buyers. And because it takes so much to get a buyer offer accepted, and because these guys, especially the new ones, are not necessarily trained in being able to get that done, they're falling apart and they're not making any money. So they jump out of the business. They're jumping into the business looking at that big check and looking at, hey, I've got this opportunity because I was laid off during the pandemic. And they're jumping right back out because no matter what they do, they can't get that offer accepted. No offer accepted means no income in real estate. Got to pay the bills. Got to keep the lights on.
Got to pay the bills. Got to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
All right, Mike.
Yeah.
We're 10 over. We're 10 minutes over. So if you had to, what are the top 3 things that people take away today?
I guess number 1, we are going through this massive time of just uncertainty. But at the end of the day, it's nothing we haven't seen before with a different name. We are business as usual. We are life as usual. Life goes on. Babies are still happening. Marriages are still happening. Divorces are still happening, unfortunately. All of life is still going to go on. And as bad as the Ukraine might look on the surface, we are not going into a nuclear war. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not, because that's mutually assured
Knock on wood.
on both. I mean, if we go into a nuclear war, that's mutually assured destruction for both people. Let's be honest. And nobody wants that.
Bad for lose for everybody. Okay, what's number 2?
Number 2, both stock market and economy 100% of the time come out better and stronger after a conflict. Every time. Every conflict from World War II to now. World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Persian Gulf I, Persian Gulf II, Afghanistan. Every single conflict the United States has been involved in on any level has always come out and jumped after that conflict, or at least after that conflict started. So that's where Persian Gulf I, Persian Gulf II came in. 6 months after the conflict started, stock market sped north.
Yep.
They just did. So right now,
you have a long time horizon.
Yep.
If you
buy the dip.
Yep.
Buy the dip, buy the uncertainty, right? Still a lot of stocks, and especially tech stocks, are at a discount right now. We haven't seen these prices for a year. Buy the dip.
Huh?
Right? And buy a mutual or an ETF. Don't buy just like an individual stock.
Write it out. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Over a long enough time horizon, the fact is 100% of stocks have gone out of business over a long enough time. We know this. I mean, look at it. Kodak. I mean, that was a power player in the market, right? Blockbuster, power player in the market. None of these companies don't even exist anymore. Over a long enough time period, 100% of companies go out of business. We know this, right? Buy a basket, buy an ETF or a mutual. Don't buy just one individual stock and just ride it out off to the sunset. You could get lucky, but more than likely over a long enough time period, you won't. Apple's great, but it won't be Apple forever. It won't. It'll always be displaced, just like everything else in life is. Number 3, buy a house. If you're moving up, or if you do not have a house, buy a house. And if you're like, well, I'm not sure if I should buy a house because I'm renting and blah, 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 then you absolutely need to buy a house because your rents are about to jump 15 to 25%. Simple, literally. But think about that. If you don't believe me, if you're in an apartment complex, call 3 or 4 apartment complexes around you. Don't even alert your current landlord. Just call 3 or 4 apartment complexes around you. Say, hey, how much is a apartment right now? And first they're going to say, well, okay, well, the waiting list, by the way, is 6 to 8 months. And if they're not saying that, then they're going to give you some outrageous number, and ask them that second question. Hey, how much was it to rent the same apartment 12 months ago? If you don't believe me, just make the calls, guys.
Make the calls, yeah.
And then look at that and say, okay, 12 months from now, or 6 months from now, or 8 months from now, or 3 months from now, when I got to go release, do I really want, and it's not even can I, because most people can, but do I really want to afford my rent to go from $1,200 to $1,500 when I could just go buy a house? And even if I'm paying $1,500, I at least get a couple thousand back on my taxes. I'm paying down a mortgage. It's my property. Buy a house. If you're moving down, no rush. No rush. Literally no rush. Yeah, I mean, you're making money right now, guys. Yeah, I'm telling my parents, I'm telling people that, like, you got 6 months before this market starts eclipsing. Yeah,
Right.
there are a lot of agents, I believe they're in the marketplace creating the story that you have to get your house on the market right now. But if you're a move down seller, yeah, you got time. You got time. I'm not an alarmist. I'm not gonna sit there and tell you like this is the last month you're gonna make appreciation, because it's not. There's too many buyers and not enough sellers, simply put. And that's everything. That's all I got. And we covered a
Yep.
lot of
Oh, yeah. We covered a lot. We really did.
yeah.
We covered a lot. Mike, I miss these talks. I love these talks. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you
then
for
there
all
was so much that happened in the last 30 days. I'm like, okay, we moved it to 30 days. I'm like, and I think yesterday we are both like, what are we going to talk about? I'm like, I think
everything. Yeah, yeah,
we'll
everything.
find something. Yeah. Well, for
Mike,
now,
I
I'm gonna
can't thank you enough. You do so
oh,
much
likewise.
researching, and like it's like you're such a freaking brainiac, and it's amazing, and like you're always so fluid and giving with the knowledge. It's really awesome. So I really appreciated everything this morning.
Oh, and thank you, and thanks for guiding us and helping me out with this. 'Cause I tend to go off on these tangents and never really land the plane.
I
Um,
feel like I feel like it's like bumper bowling.
yeah,
It's like, and I'm like, all right, Mike, we got to smack over here. It's like we're about to go in the gutter, dude.
yeah, we are,
So
and I
good.
will take myself in the gutter every time. There we go.
So
All right,
yeah,
guys.
you'll go to the gutter, huh?
Any questions you got, anything we can help you out with a real estate need, or if you just want to chat about economy or finance or whatever that looks like, give us a call, 248-886-4550. And guys, go enjoy the sun. It looks glorious. I'm like looking out a window right now. I want to be out on the other side of that window. I think instead of going for the gym, I'm going for a run. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Enjoy the
Sounds
day.
good. All right, buddy. See you.